I'm Liz Larson.
And I'm Bill McKenna.
And together, we created the Cogno Movement System. And we'd like to welcome you to the New Life Perspectives radio show,
where we're going to be sharing with you tools, tips, and ideas that are going to change your life.
Hello in UK Health Radio Land. I'm Liz Larson, one half of the Cogno Movement team, and I am here today with
Bill McKenna.
Hey, Bill McKenna. Thanks for being with us today. Bill and I have a very special guest, Esra Ogut. Did I say that right, Esra?
You said it perfectly. You really did.
And Esra is the author of Money Does Grow on Trees. I wanted to put a really in there, Esra. Like money really does grow on trees. Money does grow on trees. The myths we create and live by, and boy, do we ever do that. And Esra, you're Turkish, correct?
Yes.
And you do a lot of work in Turkey. So it's likely we have some listeners out there today that are back home. Would you like to say hello to them?
Of course I would. And I'm going to say it in Turkish.
Love it.
Herkese merhaba. Sizleri selamlıyorum Los Angeles'tan. Çok çok öpüyoruz Aykut ve ben hepinizi.
Beautiful. Esra, would you give us just a little bit of your background and tell us what had you create this book specifically and why now?
Well, it's interesting because it was created before the pandemic and all the economic, problems we ended up having in the world. Me and my husband, we live together, we love together, and we teach together. We're transformational coaches, and our path started, neither one of us ever set out to be transformational coaches, but when we were in a kind of not so good place in our lives, both of us, working with our mentor just changed our lives, and we were able to just create, the reality of our dreams. And anyway, when something like that happens, people come to you and they're like, I want to have what you have. And in a way, like the people's demand kind of got both of us into that track. And we've been teaching now since 2007. It's been a while.
Wow. I love that. And what a great way, right? It is good. Because people notice the truth, right? If you're living that dream, right?
Definitely. And, I think, Bill, that's like one of the confusion a lot of people have. They think they're going to read a book or, go to a course, like a short course, and, everything's going to change if they acquire the knowledge. But there's a big difference between having the knowledge of something and having the actual consciousness of that knowledge. And when you've been through the journey yourself, it's like your electromagnetic field carries that information. So the first time I ever coached in my life, it was a friend and somebody I was working with back then. She was my agent. I was an actress in Turkey for a while, and she just saw the changes, and we were having breakfast one day, and she's like, I want you to do coaching with me, because I would always talk about my coach, and she saw the changes. I'm like, don't come to me, go to my teacher, he's the master. And she's like, no, I want to learn it from you. So in a way, she kind of forced me to start, and I gave her a high price too to get her off my back, but it didn't work. So I started with her, and then she recommended me to other people, and in 2 months, I just didn't even know what hit me. I was working with 25, 30 people a week. So it's just beautiful when it just flows that way. Your life and your life's happening flows you into what your purpose is, which might have been different from, what you might have thought before.
It's really true. You said something that Bill and I teach all the time. You said it's kind of like in your field. But we know for sure that it's not kind of like it's there. It's actually there. Mm-hmm. And that's something we teach, is how to reach out and actually touch that part of your field. It has mass, it has weight, it has size. It's a really fun thing. And you're 100% right. People feel it. And in some ways, it's almost as though they can see it as well, but they certainly feel it in your field. And that's one of the amazing things about how to get that attraction going.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your teacher. You have a background, you told us, in Kundalini Yoga. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. I found Kundalini Yoga at a time I was in LA. I had just moved to LA. Well, it had been a couple of years. And yeah, like I was just struggling in the Hollywood world. It's so funny. Like, I feel it's like such a full circle back now. I just moved back to Hollywood just very recently from Hawaii. But anyway, so there was drugs going on, there was depression going on, there was a lot of alcohol going on. And I was in a point in my life where I was very disillusioned. And I had this question come up that I think I've had since I was 4 or 5, which is like, what am I doing here? Why am I on the planet? What's the purpose of all of this? So Kundalini Yoga technique, I met it at a time like that in my life. And it's really interesting because I remember, and we actually call this a being choice. I didn't understand what it was back then, but I remember the day before I found Kundalini Yoga, the night before, I just like kneeled on the floor and I just said, you know, either my life gets better now or I'm out of here. I'm not doing life like this. So basically, and we'll get into that, but without realizing, then my teacher taught me that concept. My coaching teacher taught me that concept, Daryl Rutherford. Without realizing, I had made a being choice. A being choice is when we decide to belong to a new reality, not just in our heads, but with all of our being. And that was one of those nights. And interestingly enough, the next day I'm just walking around. I see a red brick wall and a building, you know, and I get curious about the building. I'm like, oh, I wonder what they do in this building. Like, who gets curious about a building, right? And then I walk right in, open the door, and it's like a bunch of people dressed in white and they're doing Kundalini Yoga. And I'm like, let me try this. So that was one of the turning points in my life. In about 3 months, depression went away. Drugs just went like this. I just got up one morning and I said, I'm never touching anything again. And that was. So that was the first powerful kind of, you know, waking up, let's say.
Wow. Now, I understand that you had a near-death experience.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Sure. I was about 16 or 17, and we were interrailing with friends from, you know, as a gift of finishing high school. And I was in southern France. And again, I was in one of those moods that later kicked in again in LA before I found the Kundalini Yoga. Like, what's the point of life? What am I doing here? That kind of stuff. And there was kind of a desire of mine not to be here. And, you know, that got manifested almost. I went into the water. There was a red flag not to go in. None of my other smart friends did go in. And as I was in the water, I just started getting into this, how do you call it? The undertow, which I didn't know anything about. So I was under the water, like in a washing machine for what seemed like forever. And the first thing I heard, I mean, I was really scared, obviously, because I knew if I opened my mouth, all the water is going to get in and that's going to be the end of me. So there was a lot of fear and panic, obviously. And then on my right ear, I heard like the sound of a man. I don't know, it was so weird. It was like a megaphone, like right there, but it felt like it was outside of me. And the words that were spoken was, "This is the dream. You're just about to wake up." And as soon as I heard that, there was like this something that kicked into me where now I wasn't afraid of dying. On the contrary, it was like, oh yeah, I remember this is the dream. And, you know, the threshold of death is kind of the waking up to going back home kind of a feeling. And so once the fear dropped and I just totally kind of relaxed, the very first thing that happened is I started seeing like a movie trailer, really like fast scenes of my 16, 17-year-old life, where the only moments that mattered were either the ones where I gave love or the moments that I received love. So I remember thinking, wow, this love thing is like super important. Wish I knew it before I was on my way out. And then it was just, then I got out of the body. And the level of love, the level of peace, I mean, the frequencies of what we call peace and love, the kind that doesn't exist, I feel, here on the planet, was what was experienced. And I could also feel like multi-selves, like other selves in other places doing things. I couldn't see what they were doing. So there was this understanding like, oh, wow, this is, I'm not so local, in this body. There's like other me's in other dimensions and realities. Then it went even more further. And there was a sense of just whatever I wanted to know, I knew. Whatever I wanted to see, I saw. If I was curious about my mother, I could in that moment see what she's doing. So there was this access of all knowing, all seeing, all hearing. And there the recognition was like, oh my God, we are, all of us, not just me, obviously, we are the creator. Ourselves here, in the body, we're part of that energy. And the feeling of oneness was incredible. Just feeling like I am at the same time the waves, I'm the same time the sky, I'm the same time the space. And a little further, the total I drop. There was no I and then the experience. It just all became one. And in that moment, there was a slight separation. So there was this oneness, and then there was this again separation. And I thought to myself, wow, it'd be so cool to go back onto the earth, knowing all this and remembering all this. And before the thought actually got created, bam, I was back in the body. Bam, I got out of the water. Another big wave came. This time I wasn't scared. It was like the movie Moana. If you watch it, it's like, oh, wave, I know you're my friend. And it just took me and, parked me back to the shore. And then of course, I ran for my life. And it was just, I was so high. Everything was so beautiful after that moment for 3 days.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
That's a lot of things that happened, but how long do you think the actual moment was in real time? How long do you think it lasted?
Well, I mean, I don't know what the specifics of how long you can hold your breath can be. Let's say, I'm not a very good breath holder. So let's say probably it was like, I would say maximum a minute. I'm guessing logically. Yeah. Because the experience itself, while I was in it, because when we step out of time, we don't experience time in the same way than when we're in the time. But yeah, the experience itself, like so much happened and downloaded and was experienced. It felt longer than my 16 years of being on the planet.
So Bill, you have a very specific reason that you're curious about this, right? You have some similarities to other NDE experiencers, right?
Well, yeah, I had the good fortune of working with, there's the International Association for Near-Death Studies. It's called IANDS. They have chapters all over the world. And for anybody listening, you can look it up, IANDS. And you can attend their meetings. They have typically it's once a month on a Saturday. Most places in the world have a chapter. They're basically support groups for people who have near-death experiences. And there are some really common things that happen afterwards. And the shift in reality can be really unsettling. It's like a trauma. And you're going from what would be considered a very normal physical experience as a human here on Earth, and then you have your senses opened up to such a massive extent that reality is not what you used to think, and you're start to have very little separation in between you and everything else, specifically other people. You may see their energy field or their auras. You may feel the pain that they feel. If they're happy, you're happy. If they're sad, you're sad. Yeah. And you feel it as yourself. And it can be very confusing because right now for, most humans, right, they walk around, Joe Blow in the aisle next to me in the grocery store. I can still go and get my cornflakes and put it in the shopping basket. But for somebody who's had these near-death experiences, if this person in the aisle next to me in the grocery store has just lost their mother or something, you may end up in a pile of tears. Like you're like, why am I so sad? Why does my knee hurt? Why, all of these things. So it can be quite overwhelming, coupled with the fact, and this is an amazing phenomenon when you shift dimensions, is you're manifesting. You start to think of something and then poof, it happens. Yeah, it's there is a shrinking of time. So the coupling of all of these different phenomenon is quite overwhelming, and I had helped people, manage the gift versus the gift controlling them. So that was my.
Oh, that's beautiful, Bill, because you're just helping me discover something actually right now. Because I definitely didn't have that support. I mean, especially where I'm at in Turkey, and also with my foreign friends, they're like, oh, you probably hit your head in the rocks and you've gone crazy, So it was like this heaven type of experience for 3 days, like the way the sun looked, the way the sand looked, the way the beauty of the planet looked was on just another level for me. But because my friends are like, oh, just have a beer and just like, yeah, you probably hit your head, glad you didn't die, and that was it. I think after those 3 days, I kind of like began to shut that experience down, feeling like, well, maybe I did hit my head, although I knew that that was the truth and this was the dream. But it was, as you said, very, very confusing. So I never knew one of the things that you're talking about, like the ability to feel other people, because I still do have that. For example, if someone's my husband is having some physical pain due to a hernia on his back and his leg, and it's like it's happening to me, and he just doesn't get it when I tell him. I'm like, you know what, you not fixing this is hurting me. I cannot handle it. It's like it's happening in my body. So I didn't know that that's maybe a gift that came from there.
Oh, it is.
I didn't know that.
It is, and there's some techniques that we can utilize to stop that pain. Matter of fact, because the subject came up, right? I'm sure there's probably listeners. There's a reason the subject came up, and there's listeners out there right now who are like, oh my gosh, that's me, So I'm just going to give a technique to you right now to help.
Bill, right before you do that, I just want to acknowledge some of our listeners are going to recognize themselves in that description you just gave, who haven't had an NDE. And those are people who are empaths naturally. They're sort of born that way, that experience that sort of things from birth. So I just want to acknowledge anybody who recognizes themselves in what Bill and Esra just explained about feeling other people's pain or experiences, that this will help you as well. So take it away, Bill.
Okay, so what I'm going to give you right now is just one. It's only one technique that that will help, and it's extraordinarily simple. So this technique that I'm going to show you is to help you to make a separation, and it is extremely easy to do. So for all our listeners out there, you're going to just follow along. Put your pain on a scale of 1 to 10, something that you empathetically think that you might have. Now, what we do is simply begin to notice the differences. Notice that your hair versus your husband's hair. Notice what his nose looks like versus your nose. What color eyes does he have? What color eyes do you have? Notice your wardrobe. This is my wardrobe. I have these type of shoes and he has those type of shoes. My body looks like this and his body looks like that. My way that I talk is like this, and he is like that. I like this, and he likes that. Notice what color you like and what color your husband likes. Notice if you wear earrings and your husband does not. Notice all the differences. My teeth are like this, his teeth are like that. My lips are like this, his lips are like that. Every single thing about you that's different. You really have to really notice it. Notice all the differences. Notice that your entire life experience, although some of it is blended but it's actually different. My husband's good at computers and I'm not with the computers. I'm good at writing and he's better at this. But we're very, very different. Simply noticing the differences. So, this is the exercise. Notice 10 things that are different about you and the person that you're picking up the feeling from. This is just one technique. There's a lot more, but it really works.
Yeah.
And so, do you notice any difference in how you feel now?
Yes, I would say, picking up the emotional pain of his.
Mm-hmm.
When you first asked me, I would have put it on a scale as an 8. Now it's down at a 3.
Okay. All right. So notice how easy that was. And as I mentioned here, control the gift versus the gift controlling you.
As with everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
I love it. Thank you very much for that discovery, Bill.
oh, you're welcome. And it's something that I know, being in your position, having been opened up like you have, this is a gift that you'll be able to use everywhere all the time, because for people like yourself that have been through it, there's no off valve, there's no off switch. It's not like you say, oh, I don't feel that way. You've been cast into a new dimension. So it's your reality.
That's a really beautiful exercise for people who, like I said before, empaths and people who experience NDEs, or anybody who just feels too commingled with their kids or their family. It's important to separate your body from theirs, and you can serve better. And with that being said, it's interesting that so many empaths and people who have experienced NDE become healers. We're constantly experiencing the world around us outside of our own bodies, that so many have the desire to then become healers and coaches. And that's really what you did, right, Esra?
Yes, most definitely.
So, and you developed your own coaching program, and you shared with us earlier that you have an interesting approach to the ego. Would you like to share that with us?
The ego, I kind of learned from my mentor, Daryl Rutherford. I think he has such a good understanding of it, and being able to understand that concept in a different way really helped me in my life. So he says the ego is simply a function that allows any belief system we have to be experienced as a reality by us. And if we can just see the ego not as the enemy or not anything bad, but just a function that is very keen on keeping whatever the previous reality has been in place very strongly, almost like the anchor of a boat or of a ship. In order to experience a harbor, you have to anchor in there. So the ego is the anchor of any belief system we have, so that it can be experienced as a reality by us until we're ready to change that belief system. So since we're talking about healing and, the body and changes, I'd like to give an example from this. For example, there was a lady that came to me and she was experiencing a lot of physical pain, like 2 to 3 months every year. She would just be totally bedridden. Went to this doctor, went to that doctor. She couldn't. No, again, we're having I cannot. We're, I guess, not meant to do it today. I don't know what to say. I cannot hear you guys at all now. Are you there?
We were just keeping quiet for you when it was garbled up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what to do. Do you think we should reschedule, guys?
Hey, let me try one last thing. Okay. Esra, you have a lot of energy. Can you right now ground yourself? I want you to imagine a golden grounding cord down to the center of the earth. Just connect the feet, connect the base of your spine to the center of the earth. Fully connected and fully grateful for being here on the physical plane. I know you're super great at this already, but let's just do that and let's see if that works. So let's go back to the ego again. Do
you want to try having her put a crystal? So I screwed.
Yeah, I think, 2 days ago, I found out my father potentially has cancer. So it could be that's having me so energetically frazzled, because I have seen my emotional world kind of impact technology. It's like it happens.
Yeah, it happens to me all the time. And one other thing that works, Bill's idea is fantastic, but also just putting a crystal between you and the computer. So a computer guy actually gave me that trick. And he said the crystal, because it absorbs energy and works it just absorbs it before it goes to your computer. So that's a possibility too, if you have one.
I don't have anything with me.
Everything's packed. All right, well, just try what Bill said and let's try again.
Let's just ground you. I want you probably have a crystal in one of your boxes. Imagine that crystal in between you and the computer right now. Just imagine.
I already put it there.
Okay, good. We're all there. Good. Okay, we're ready to go. And I'm sorry about your father. We can talk about that.
Thank you.
Okay,
just start again, if you will, with ego.
So one of the ways that we approach ego, which I find very different, I haven't really seen it anywhere else much be talked about in this way, is that ego is simply just a function that keeps anything we have chosen to believe in place so that it can be experienced as a reality by us. Kind of like a ship being in a harbor, in order to experience the harbor, the ship needs an anchor so that it can stay there and have the experience of the harbor. In the same way, ego is a function where it allows anything we believe to be experienced by us until we change our perception about it. So I would like to give an example of, since we've been talking about physicality and healing, that's just how the conversation started. There was a lady that came to me where she was experiencing intense pain, like 3 months out of the year, almost every year. She would be totally bedridden. And nobody could figure out what was up with her, what was wrong with her. So when we approached it from a belief system level, I asked her, I said, okay, if you had a gain from experiencing this problem, what do you think it could possibly be? And she's like, what? I don't have a gain. And I'm like, well, it's not a blame, but we're very powerful beings. So if we're creating a problem, we're also creating that problem for a reason. A part of us, through the belief system we have in place, has a gain from experiencing the problem. So we dove in. It was just 1 or 2 sessions, and I utilized the inner child technology with her, which I won't get into. But what we found when we went deep into her unconscious mind, is that we found that she had a belief system: unless I'm perfect, I'm not lovable. Something that she picked up from her mom. So she would go around doing everything perfectly, like the table had to be perfect. everything had to be set up perfect. Her daughter had to do her homework perfect. And if anything was less than perfect, she wouldn't feel good about it. And at that moment, she had an understanding that the reason she's having these pains and being bedridden for 3 months out of the year is because that was her way of not having to function perfectly, yet be loved. And the minute she had that awareness, it was just like a big aha for her. And she was just so shocked on the phone. And she's like, oh my God, this is my relationship with my mom. And you know what? Right now, right here, I claim that I am lovable, whether I perform perfectly or not. And she reported all the pain leaving her body in that moment, in the phone conversation, like it was instant like this. And she never has experienced it. It's been 3-4 years now.
Wow.
So, yeah. So that's what we mean by, if we can see ego as a function. So that was the belief system that was ruling her body. The minute she saw the belief system for what it was and how it was picked up by her as a young child, not only did her pains go away, but even more beautiful, her relationship with her daughter changed. She stopped pushing her own daughter to be perfect, just like her mother had pushed her to be perfect.
Wow.
This is amazing.
You helped heal generations, right? Who knows how far back, even beyond her mother, this went.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we're very, very powerful, all of us. And, we started talking about it as a field when we started the conversation. It's almost like, a belief system is over here in this field. And if it can just be moved here all of a sudden, which is basically a change in perception, then whether it's the body or, I don't know, our money situation or our relationship, there can be this whole instant transformation as if you're in another timeline altogether.
It's really true. We experience that in our work too. Our words are a little different. We actually address that on the nervous system level. So as a pattern, that's a pattern along the power lines in the physical body. And it's so true. We find exactly what you're saying. People have their reasons. We had someone who, when we asked that question, they said, well, it's nice to be disabled. I get special treatment, special parking places, and special consideration. That's something that's hard to give up. So I love what you said, that it's not a blame, because it's true, it's not. But I think the idea that we acknowledge all aspects of a situation, it really is very, very empowering.
Yes.
So your book is Money Does Grow on Trees. So let's shift just a little bit. And I know you have a story about somebody who attracted money with the work that you do. Is that right?
Well, we have many people who, come and do that. That's like belief systems, and how to shift them is kind of, one important integral part of what we teach. My life around money definitely changed, with me changing my perception about it. When I met my coach, Daryl Rutherford, he very early, I was always struggling with money. And very early on, I think it was the first session, he said to me, so Esra, what was your first interaction with money? And, do you remember what you started believing about money? And when I did look back, I won't go into the long story, but I realized that I had separated as a 7-year-old money from love, as if money, like people can either have money or they get to have love. The two cannot go together. So my choice had been, I will always follow the way of love and never the way of money. So this was a decision I made as a 7-year-old based on something that was going around in the household. And I recognized as a now 32-year-old, like, oh my God, the 7-year-old girl is basically still running my whole money game. And when I woke up to that, where that's coming, where the struggle is coming, first I realized, oh my God, I'm living my life exactly as I chose as a 7-year-old. I always have abundance of love, doing the job I love, but somehow never being able to receive money for it. So instead of seeing it as a I can't situation, I all of a sudden saw, no, this is a very powerful setup. I set up my problem very powerfully, and I'm now getting to experiencing it very powerfully. So that allowed me to immediately make the shift in the other direction, simply by seeing the illusion and making a different decision, a different being choice. And then from that point on, it just accelerated like crazy. Let me give you another example in regards to prosperity. A friend of mine I was talking to who, is also doing a lot of kind of healing coaching work. And her thing was also, I just can't solve this money situation. I just can't solve this money problem. I've gone to so many workshops. Again, she was down the line of I can't, rather than, I'm experiencing this problem because a part of me wants to experience this problem. It's not happening to me from the outside. It's happening through me from the inside out. So I put her into a situation, and that's an exercise I would like to share later on. But I had her close her eyes and just very detailedly put herself into a situation where she's very prosperous. She has maybe 2 houses, one is looking over the Bosporus Bridge. She doesn't have to even, work for money if she doesn't want to, but she can if she feels like incredible freedom through the prosperity she has. And I got her to experience what that would be like every day. Now, someone who's claiming they want to have more prosperity, you would expect that picture would make the person happy. But no, it didn't. She just started kind of sweating in front of me. She's just and she took off her jacket, and she took off her coat and then jacket, and she's like, oh my God. And I'm like, well, what's the emotion that's coming up? What is the emotion that's making you sweat like this? And she's like, well, I feel a lot of shame. Oh, what is the shame about? What is the belief you have underneath the shame? What is there to be shameful about? And she's like, oh, I believe that if I have more, others have less because of me. So the belief system is, money resources are limited. And that's a very, very common belief system. When we believe money resources or abundance isn't an energy, it's just something material and there's limited amounts, 2 things happen simultaneously. Either people get super greedy and they want to just have everything for themselves, or the opposite happens where there's a refusal because you think if you have more, others will have less because of you. So she got it how, okay, I'm experiencing this reality of not enough money, or just she would always just have enough to pay her rent. It's not like she didn't have any money, but her belief system very successfully, what she chose to believe in the past very successfully, was setting up her experience.
That is so interesting for both of you, Bill and Esra. Do you ever notice how the nicest people often tend to be broke? It's this niceness of, I shouldn't really have more than others. And if I have more, I should give it away. I mean, we learn that in kindergarten or younger. And those of us who feel nice and big-hearted and generous feel uncomfortable having more. But you think, well, why do these mean people, why do these terrible people who do bad things, why do they succeed? Well, often they don't have an issue with having more. So,
well, I had that exact belief system compounded with the one I just told you about. And that I realized later on came from watching a lot of Turkish movies. In all the Turkish movies that I watched growing up, always the good guys, were the poor ones, and always the bad ones who had lost their soul and just didn't care anything about anybody were the rich guys. So very early on, that was another compounding belief system I had. Oh, if you want to be humanitarian, if you want to live from the heart, you got to say no to money. And all it is just a program. It's just a belief system.
Yep, just a program.
It's not real.
And a lot of times people who have religious belief, who are people of faith, will learn that in religion, that if you're poor, that means that you are good. So in Italian, we'll also say poverino or poor, meaning dear or kind or loving. So, a priest will have no money and he's good, he's pious. So we do get these patterns early on, and they're very, very insidious. We don't even realize they're there. We think it has to do with goodness. So shifting that perspective alone can be massive, really huge for people.
Most definitely.
So, go ahead.
My mentor said something which to me was really shocking when I first heard it. Not that, I mean, he didn't really believe in sin in that sense, although he was one of the most spiritual people that I have seen. But I think to shock me out of my belief system, because as I said, I had two compounding systems that was keeping me separated from prosperity. He goes, Esra, I don't really believe in sin, but if there was a sin to be had, I would say that is to be poor. And it just kind of like really shocked me. I'm like, what, And then when he went further with it, he goes, yeah, because so much is available, so much is given to us. I like to think of it like oxygen. When we're breathing deeply, we're not thinking like, oh, just because I'm being healthy and more vital by breathing deeper and better, somebody else is getting less because of me. No, the oxygen is out there, it's for us. And the deeper we breathe, the better, body function we're having. It's not, we don't think of oxygen as something limited. And I think a lot of the belief systems, again, around money, this way or that way, come from a sense of believing that abundance is limited, and it isn't, because it's just an energy.
So true. So in your book, are you taking people through steps to change that perspective, that perception, that program?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of exercises there. For example, an exercise, how to make a being choice. How do you talk with and change the perception of your ego? There's a great exercise to talk to your ego. When you talk to the great thing about talking to the ego, which is just holding a pattern for us, is that in the moments that you talk to the ego, you cannot simultaneously be your ego. So it's that kind of what we did with Bill in regards to the body. It's an exercise to separate ourselves consciously from the ongoing pattern that's kind of, ruling us. So are we ruling the pattern, or is the pattern ruling us, kind of a thing? So there are such exercises like that, yes.
Yeah, beautiful. So speaking of exercises, we always offer our audience an exercise every weekend. This week they're getting two. Bill had an impromptu one in the middle of our talk today, and you're going to give us one at the end about. Well, actually, I'll have you introduce. What is the exercise you're going to share with the audience today?
I already shared it in the example I gave, but it is, again, if we're having a problem, whatever the problem might be, it could also be like a relationship problem. Let me just very quickly give an example, again, because we didn't touch on relationships, but somebody I was coaching who was claiming she wants a relationship really badly, but it's not happening. Again, when we did this exercise, she discovered she has a belief system that when a man comes into her life, he has to be the priority. Everything has to revolve around the man. So her gain in not creating the relationship was that if she manifested a great relationship, the sacrifice would be having to sacrifice herself. So again, when she found the gain, she was then able to move into the actual manifestation. So a good way to do that is just to, close our eyes, and whatever our goal might be, whatever we're claiming we want, the only reason it might not be happening is because we don't want it 100%. So in a very exaggerated way, we begin to visualize whatever the goal is. So if it's a relationship, we actually visualize, not like shortly, but kind of in a long way. Oh, we meet the person, we have a great, dinner with them, then the relationship goes on, we begin living with the person. Every morning we're waking up, we're together. Or if it's money, it would be the example I gave, where you really exaggerate being the prosperous one, living your life every day in prosperity. and you look for what irks you. You look for the ugh in there. Once you capture the feeling, it could be shame. In the relationship example, it was fear for her. Then you begin asking questions. Well, what's the fear about? What's the shame about? To find the underlying belief system that's allowing the person to set up their reality in that specific way.
That is really amazing. That's beautiful. Yeah. And you said something that I just want to piggyback on. This happens for so many women in relationships, and often mature women, over 45, maybe they've been married before, maybe they have a family, and now they find themselves single. And they really, really want a relationship, or at least they say they do. And then they're actively searching, seeking, and suffering about not having a relationship. But at the same time, they don't want to give up their independence.
Yeah.
They don't want a man, sorry, Bill, moving into their house that they have to cook for, clean for, messing things up. So in that way, they want what they do not want at the same time. And it creates this great strife in the body, this feeling of suffering and anxiety, when the truth is they want a different kind of relationship. And getting clear about that, shifting that perspective, having the goggles taken off to see what it is you do really want, and then having the ability to choose that makes all the difference in the world. I know women who've been in this cycle for 20 years plus, started when they're 50 and now they're 70 and they're still in the same place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a very, very good example. So yeah, like the belief system or the ego is telling us a specific story. And if we want to change the experience and expand the experience, we just have to find the new myth and put it on top of the old myth. It's like taking a word, and if you write on it again and again and again and again, the old word is going to disappear and the new word is going to appear. And that's how changing our reality works. For example, I never had that thing where I need to like kind of revolve around a man or do any housework. I decided very early on, I am not doing any housework ever. And attracted, the one man, he loves to do housework. He loves to cook. He loves to iron. So we have a great balance, the two of us.
That's great.
And all of that's really available. It really is available if you know how to choose it, just exactly like you're saying. But that first thing is getting rid of the myth. And I love that word, that myth that you're using, because we have so many that we live by. Yeah. Almost superstitions in a way.
Yeah, and when we go back to what we were talking about through the near-death experience, we are the universe individualized in this little body in the here and now, having an experience. And I love what Abraham Hicks says. I love that saying from Abraham Hicks. We're such free beings. We're free to bondage ourselves because we just are having an experience based on what we have chosen to create as a myth for us. When we change that consciously, like an artist who, takes down the old painting, paints a new painting, there's a different color, a different reality all of a sudden happening on the wall. Well, we have the power to do that with everything, and everybody has that power.
Yeah. And it's about having the ability to recognize it's possible. We find maybe that's the biggest problem is people have no idea that they're powerful enough to change their own reality through changing neurological patterns in our work, through changing the myths and the beliefs in your work. They just don't know. But now through shows like this, they have an inkling that this is possible, and not only possible, but available. So how could people get in touch with you? How can they work with you? How can they get your book? I know Bill and I are lucky enough to have advanced copies. How do people reach you?
Well, it is right now on pre-sale on Amazon.com, and it is getting released September 6th. So we're just a week out from it actually being able to be shipped to people. People can also find us on icanesranow.com. All the information is available there.
Beautiful. So the name of the book is Money Does Grow on Trees, The Myths We Create and Live By. And that's Esra Ogut, Esra Ogut on Amazon.com. It's the name Ike, I-K-E, and the word and, ESRA now.com, Ike and EsraNow.com. So I want to thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your beautiful work with everyone on the planet. And we hope to have you again next time with some more stories and some more exercises.
Thank you so much. And I really want to thank both you and Bill. Like this ended up being a gift for me. What we talked about, the NDE, it was just a aha for me as to where that whole feeling thing comes from. So thank you very much for that technique.
Thank you, Esra.
So Bill, speaking of gifts, we have a couple for our listening audience as well on our website. Would you share what those are for people and what they can get for free when they come to our site?
Okay. So for all the listeners out there, we have 2 free ebooks. And the first one is called Suffering is Optional. And it can take you through some very interesting insights about that. I know it sounds not true, but when you read the book, you will figure out that it really is. The other free ebook is called The Little Book of Big Manifesting. And this book, this free ebook that you can get at cognomovement.com. That's cogno like your brain, C-O-G-N-O, movement, M-O-V-E-M-E-N-T.com. It gives you a technique that you will be able to accelerate your manifesting from a whole different perspective. This is utilizing your physical body to accelerate the manifesting. So it's too much to go into here, but get the free ebook at cognomovement.com.
So I want to share too, I mean, it sounds like Esra's work and our work have a lot of crossovers and they're very different techniques. Cogno movement is very physical. But I think that our little books, and they're only, each of them is under 60 pages each. They're not a big, beautiful book like Esras, but they are informational, a lot of pictures, a lot of diagrams, and a lot of exercises. And I do think it would help people put into context all of the things that we talked about today, and then give you lots of options and choices for how to actually make those perception changes, how to actually change the myths in your life, how to create more energy by deleting those old myths. That's a whole nother topic. And Bill and I have some special information that I think we'll be sharing with you next week about energy and what changes when you're able to actually regain some energy. So I want to share too, I mean, it sounds like Esra's work and our work have a lot of crossovers and they're very different techniques. Cogno movement is very physical. But I think that our little books, and they're only, each of them is under 60 pages each. They're not a big, beautiful book like Esras, but they are informational, a lot of pictures, a lot of diagrams, and a lot of exercises. And I do think it would help people put into context all of the things that we talked about today, and then give you lots of options and choices for how to actually make those perception changes, how to actually change the myths in your life, how to create more energy by deleting those old myths. That's a whole nother topic. And Bill and I have some special information that I think we'll be sharing with you next week about energy and what changes when you're able to actually regain some energy. So once again, thanks so much, Esra. We'll be talking again soon. Please let us know what else you have available, what's coming next, and we'll talk again very soon.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks, Bill McKenna.
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks for being here with us on the New Life Perspective radio show. For more information or to find out more about the work that Bill and I do, please visit us at cognomovement.com or email us at info@cognomovement.com. See you again soon.